What follows is a fictionalized account. It draws on my experience of taking care of patients with cancer in Kahnawake and my own experience of taking care of my own father who passed away from cancer several years ago. My father died at home. The forecast called for light rain and clouds all day. As I looked out my window, it was in fact drizzling, cloudy and dismal. Already harried, I began to prepare for the busy day to come. I looked down at my list of patients for the day and saw Bill's name at the top of the list. I resigned myself to the fact that it was not going to be an easy morning. Bill had been a patient of mine for more than 15 years. He had retired from ironwork about 10 years ago. Bill was one of those guys who, despite near constant aches and pains, had a positive attitude towards all things. He was enjoying his retirement. Health-wise, Bill seemed to have dodged any serious health crises. He acknowledged that he needed to lose a substantial amount of weight and vowed he would try harder in the future. He had been diagnosed with diabetes about 8 years ago. He had quit smoking around the same time. On recent routine testing, everything had checked out fairly well, except that his stool test had come back positive for blood. He also complained of a nagging cough that had dragged on for the past several months. He had the chest x-ray and the colonoscopy done the week before. In front of me lay the results. The colonoscopy found a large tumor, but the chest x-ray results told me something else, something much more sinister. It told me that whatever had been found in the colon had spread to his lungs, making this most likely grade 4 colon cancer. Looking at the results on my desk, I prepared myself to see Bill and his wife, and braced myself for the onslaught of questions. I decided that, at least for today, there would be no discussion of prognosis. I would keep that to myself, knowing full well that the likelihood that Bill would survive beyond 1 year was a crap shot at best. Later that night, when everyone had gone to bed, I sat in my office at home and reflected on Bill and the day. My eyes welled up with tears. I felt desperately sad and alone. When I saw Bill again, after a while, he was ashen and worn out. What had been a robust, vibrant, happy-go-lucky, proud Mohawk man was now a mere shell of his previous being. He looked spent. There was an uneasy feeling in my gut. I felt my eyes start to well up with tears, but just as quickly I took a deep breath and set to the business at hand. I inquired how things had been going, what therapies had been tried. Did he have a lot of side effects? After all the technical descriptions were done, he looked at me and told me what I already knew. The cancer was not going to be beaten. I asked him what I could do. He said he wanted to be at home, where he felt most comfortable. I shake hands with my patients every day, but when I shook Bill's hand there in my office, there was a tacit understanding that I would do everything I could to make his request. Our relationship had transformed, being from amiable and technical to a more personal and intimate. The next time I saw Bill, the leaves had already fallen from the trees, the air had a crisp bite, and the sun had begun to set in the late afternoon. The gray pall of autumn was upon us. I approached his house with the same kind of trepidation I have every time I have my first home visit with someone who's dying. I feel at times like an unwanted guest. It is never a good thing when the doctor visits you at home. Sometimes I feel like a ghoul, a kind of grim reaper, stalking the house before my ultimate final visit. The doctor relationship normally unfolds in a formal and controlled realm of the doctor's office with its host of rules and protocols. Entering someone else's home for the first time is another thing altogether. As I come in and start to take off my shoes, I'm told to keep them on. I say that if I don't take off my shoes, I will hear the voice of my mother yelling at me. We sit down at the kitchen table, and over coffee we talk about how things are going. We take the time that is necessary to be prepared, who they need to call and when. I try to answer any questions they may have. We talk about the do not resuscitate order that I have to leave at the house, so that if something happens and the paramedics are called, they don't start doing CPR. The last time I saw Bill, he was in bed. He was awake, but it looked as if he could fall asleep at any moment. I sat by him on the side of the bed. His wife told me that he spent most of his time sleeping, and that when he slept, his breathing became very irregular. I asked Bill how he was doing. A wry smile crossed his lips. I asked if he had any pain. He shook his head no. It was hard for him to speak. I held his hand and asked if there was anything I could do. He shook his head and closed his eyes. There was an awkwardness when I walked into the kitchen. Bill's wife had come to terms with everything, but some of the boys were quietly angry. I could feel it. At least I think I felt it. Voices were hushed and tensed. I felt impotent. There was nothing else I had to offer. Bill's pain was managed, and he was slowly slipping away. I started to feel like an outsider, invited and somehow necessary and appreciated, but still, I felt like I was imposing on this family, implicating myself in something that was immensely private. I had been waiting a couple of days when the home care nurse called me to say that he had stopped breathing. My wife looked at me. She knows. The drive is about 15 minutes at night, but it always feels longer. When I got to the house, there were already a lot of cars parked along the road. I'm always amazed by the number of people who come when someone has passed away. Brothers, sisters, close friends, cousins, sons and daughters, and kids. Lots of kids. As I entered the house, I was greeted fondly. Many of the people there were also my patients. We smiled at one another, and I made my way to the bedroom. Bill was lying in gentle repose. His wife was by his side, still holding his hand. There was a grandchild sitting at the foot of the bed, and there were half a dozen other people in the room. I looked at his wife. She was calm. Then I have to do what the doctor has to do. I had to examine Bill. I always feel ridiculous examining someone who has passed away. It is a kind of macabre theater. I know that it is a ritual that needs to be done, but I still feel completely ill at ease doing it. It is the last act that I will perform. It is official. It's also closure for the family so that the grieving can begin. Helping people die at home was never something that I set out to do. I kind of fell into it, or more precisely, my nursing colleagues pulled me into it. It has provided me with some of my most rewarding professional and personal experiences. Being able to keep someone like Bill at home, as he had wished, that his death was as peaceful and as natural and as normal as could be expected, with his family by his side, is a pretty wonderful thing to be a part of. I can't say it's happy work. At the end of it all, I'm always feeling a bit sad and somewhat lonely, yet nevertheless grateful for being able to have helped a family through a difficult period, grateful to work closely with my nursing colleagues. But still, at the end, I always feel a small void has crept into my life.